In this video, we're going to talk about Nikola motor. If you're considering about adding Nikola in your portfolio, then please keep watching this video until the end because it'll cover many of the factors that should be considered regarding buying, holding, or selling the shares. During Friday's trading session, the stock opened at $15.06 and closed at $14.96. The lowest point at which it fell to was $14.70 and the highest point it rose to was $16.21. Compared to the current price action, its 52-week low was $9.37 and the 52-week high was $94. The current trading volume of Nikola Motor is at 18.5 million shares compared to the average volume of 14.2. The current trading volume is therefore 30% more active than the average volume. The short-term tendency of Nikola is that the stock may be bottoming out and going to go higher. The long-term price trend has been a long and sharp decline since the beginning of 2021. With that being said, the absolute bottom is around $10 to $12 for the time being, and it seems like it may start to recover some of the losses. But we're not ready to conclude that the downtrend is ready to reverse. From the price actions pattern, it would be up to you to determine if the stock still have enough steam to go upward, regardless of the fundamentals of the company. Now, let's take a look at the market capitalization of Nikola, which represents how much the company is worth in the eyes of investors at one point in time. From the yearly perspective, the market cap of Nikola increased drastically from $287.5 million in 2018 to almost $6 billion in 2020. With that being said, the company was worth a lot more at its peak, before all the issues began to affect the company. Another outside signal to observe is the total number of shares outstanding. Generally speaking, if the number of shares keep increasing, then it suggests that the company is selling the equity to keep the company afloat, and that's not something that we want to see. The number of shares of Nikola increased significantly if we look at it from the perspective of multiple years. However, if we examine the tendency of the float, it actually decreased by almost half from 2019 to 2020. Now, going forward, I think that the company may continue to sell some shares in order to cover for the expenses, but I don't think that a dilution will be as significant as before. To conclude, I think that Nikola is still recovering from a terrible end of 2020, but this week we may see some actual recoveries in the upcoming weeks. If the price holds the current grounds, I think that it can be the beginning of a recovery, and that suggests that the sell-off is really behind us. Meanwhile, the financial market's overall sentiment is still relatively reluctant at putting more money in the same genre of company. Following the stock market craze back in 2020, the stock market decided to pull back massively from the entire disruptive, innovative growth sector, covering biotech, electric vehicles, and anything requiring a keynote presentation to attract for VC money. This wave of pullback can be explained in two ways. The market needed niches to park their money into to avoid getting heavy losses back in 2020, and since the stock price of those companies increased multifold, many investors wanted to lock in the profits and didn't mind the massive sell-off that it would initiate. The second reason was because the market began to realize how overly exposed investors have become to growth stocks. These are the true reasons, in my opinion, why the stock ultimately collapsed for so many companies that everyone was talking about. In the current circumstances, the recommended approach is to be careful when buying the stocks. On one hand, the stock may be able to climb back on its own when operations begin to carry the stock price. On the other, the stock may simply increase because it fell too low. This means that in the current market settings, we need to tread water carefully regarding buying stocks. Many of them have become overpriced over the past 12 months, and we may need to wait for another few weeks or months before the timing is ripe to increase our holdings. With that being said, there will always be sudden events that will create a lot of volatilities for individual companies, as this is why it is always recommended to hold a small position in those stocks in case you fear missing out. Thank you for watching. If you like my content, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel.